Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Shruti-smriti-purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat-padam Shankaram Loka-shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya-krito Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya dakshina murtaye namaha. Om sahana vavatu sahano bhunaktu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dayakaram Dayakaram Dantan Dharma Pravartakam Pranamami Dayanandam Madacharya Paramparam. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we can chant the verse we were seeing yesterday, which is verse 15, and everybody can chant together. Chidanandamaya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita Tamo Rajas Sattva Guna Little bit more to do here, because important topic now of Prakriti. So all these words we keep hearing throughout in our study of Vedānta: Maya, Prakriti, Ishvara, Brahman. So it is very important to understand what is being conveyed through the Sanskrit. So he splits this particular text. He splits this Prakriti into two initially. It will be split actually into three gunas. So Prakriti itself consists of three gunas, but he says that sometimes the material cause has Sattva guna predominant, which means that other two, Rajas and Tamas, are still there, but it is Sattva predominant. So when the material cause is Sattva predominant, and we saw yesterday this idea of Upadhi. So Upadhi is something which is in proximity, brought in proximity with something else. It lends its attributes to that thing. So Upadhi of Brahman is Prakriti or Maya. It's a different word. These are all, in English you say ontological words. They're words, especially Maya, Mithya is ontological, but Maya, Prakriti, explaining what vyavaharika, what we see, recognize in this reality. So here we saw that the flower became upadhi for the glass. The glass was actually pure, it is clear. It cannot be tainted by any attributes or qualities. But something comes into proximity with it and it becomes as though red. That's why whole of Vedanta is as though. That is the only actually thing we have to recognize in this whole Jagat. It is all as though. That is called Mithya. Mithya is as though. So anyway, what happens here is that he says Brahman manifests. Brahman needs a mirror to reflect. So Pratibimba-vada talks about this. For anything to be seen clearly, the reflection is needed, right? My eyes cannot see themselves clearly. I need a reflection, I need a reflecting medium to see my own eyes. To recognize Brahman, this whole Jagat is given like a mirror to reflect the truth, reflect what Brahman, the consciousness really is. So, Brahman consciousness, pure, untainted, attributeless, qualityless consciousness, reflects through the sattva guna of Maya. So when he says here, when Brahman reflects through the sattva guna predominant material cause, then it gives rise to Ishvara. Because sattva guna, the main thing about sattva guna is the ability to know. Knowledge is the main thing with sattva guna. So when Brahman consciousness manifests through sattva guna, Ishvara is as though born. Ishvara comes into existence, picture, because it is again a status. Brahman manifesting through upadhi of Maya makes Ishvara into the all knowledge, or omniscient, omnipotent entity. That's why all the laws, the orders we see are Ishvara for us. Those laws and orders that we see in this relative existence are nothing but Ishvara. That is, through Maya Upadhi viewed, Ishvara becomes all the laws in the universe. So the unique characteristic of Sattva Guna is knowledge. So that Ishvara is there in the picture now. Rajoguna, or the quality of Rajas is activity, action. We will see that in the next stage. And Tamas means there is no knowledge and there is no activity. It is inertness. So in Prakriti, all of these, we saw that all of these gunas are in equilibrium at the beginning of any creation, cycle of creation. But everything is dormant, everything is in seed form. And there is, we will go and see with why Ishvara gets disturbed, why the guna gets disturbed, and why this whole creation comes into the picture. He will be mentioning in the next verses. But Prakriti is not a separate entity. We have to be very clear here. Maya is not separate from Brahman. Sometimes you read this equation, Brahman plus Maya equals Ishvara. Please get that equals and all of this out of your head. There is no Brahman plus Maya here. Maya is Brahman, but Brahman is independent of Maya. So we cannot separate Brahman and Maya because they're one and the same thing. Maya is just a dependent reality. Brahman is the only independent reality there is. So here, consciousness in the creation, how does Prakriti create then? Being blessed by, we say, the blessed by consciousness, the whole Jagat starts its dance. The dance of this universe is blessed by consciousness. Mere presence of light brings everything to light, right? Does light do anything in this room? Is light actually acting? Does it do anything? It doesn't do anything. As far as we know, it's not. But scientists may say, oh, particles are moving, all this. But we're talking on this level. Light does not do anything. It doesn't do any activity. At the same time, it lights up all activity. On the macrocosmic level, consciousness is just like light. That's why often you find this comparison of consciousness to light. Jyotisham Jyotihi, the light of all lights. It is because it lights up the whole universe and it lights up every activity, all that is taking place without judgment. So that's why it becomes all accommodative. This good, evil, all of this, the pairs of opposites are only from the ignorant viewpoint. If we talk about non-duality, how can we only have one side of the coin? We talk about non-dual, but we are always going after one of the pairs of opposites, right? Everybody wants only one, and that's usually the one that brings the sukha, the happy me. But we have to understand that the whole universe, when it comes into existence, is nothing but pairs of opposites. Everybody, everywhere has to face pairs of opposites. Where there is one side, there will be another. In fact, if you don't know one side, you cannot know the other. Both go hand in hand. If you don't know light, you cannot know darkness. If you don't know happiness, you cannot know sadness, right? So everything you see in creation, even though pairs of opposites, they go together. So he has said here that pratibimba, we saw, is the reflection. This prakriti is samanvita, it is associated with reflection. So it is the reflection of consciousness, and Maya, Prakriti, is the medium of reflection. So when the Maya or Prakriti is purely sattva, he will go on to say, purely sattva that makes Ishvara come into the picture in the form of laws and orders. And this Prakriti is also of Rajas Prakriti. Rajas brings, he will go on to say again, when it is Rajas predominant, what happens? The jiva comes when Prakriti is Rajas predominant. That is how the individual is born. So, sa Prakriti vividha Brahma Chaitanyam Prakriti Brahma Pratibimba. Wherever consciousness is manifesting, there is Maya. Consciousness cannot manifest without Maya. Maya is the upadhi. So he goes on to say, now, after having introduced Ishvara, he goes on to elaborate more about the sattva shuddhi predominant. He says here, sattva shuddhya vishuddhibhyam. Sattva shuddhya vishuddhibhyam. We saw this yesterday, but a bit more we have to talk about. Maya vidye chate mate. Maya vidye chate mate. Maya bimbo vashikritya. Maya bimbo vashikritya. Tam syat sarvajna ishvaraha. Tam syat sarvajna ishvaraha. So, Prakriti shows up in two main conditions dependent on the clarity of the sattva guna. So we have to understand it is sattva guna, all right, but the clarity of the sattva guna. When sattva is pure sattva, which means the much less rajas and tamas, with less, that same Prakriti is known as Maya. So when sattva is pure, Prakriti is known as Maya. This is the usage of different words. When sattva is pure, Prakriti is known as Maya. Then he says, the same Prakriti is known as avidya. So you have this other word, avidya, when it is impure Prakriti. What is impure Prakriti? When it is mixed with more rajas and tamas, that becomes impure. So sattva, pure sattva, it is known as Maya. Prakriti mixed with rajas and tamas, he says, it is known as avidya. Sattva shuddhya vishuddhibhyam Maya avidye. And when consciousness, Brahman, reflects through the sattvic medium called Maya, Brahman is called Ishvara. So this is why I'm going over this a bit slower, because it's important to understand these terms. Sometimes people think there are many, many things. Ishvara is one thing, Brahman's one thing, Maya is one thing. No. This should make it very clear that there is only one. But various forms of manifestation of the one are given different names. And it's very interesting to see that as well, how much has been, understood by the rishis who have actually brought all of this knowledge to us. It's very interesting to see the capacity of their intellect to analyze creation and the universe so much. So here he says that when consciousness reflects, manifests through the Maya, the sattvic medium of Maya, we saw that is called Ishvara. Brahman is known as Ishvara. So Maya, in this verse, he says, Maya Upadhi conditions, that's why you call conditioning consciousness. Conditioned, you may read in some text, conditioned consciousness. How can you condition consciousness? You can condition consciousness by putting it, something close to it. It looks like that, right? It makes it appear. Conditioned consciousness is Maya. It makes consciousness appear as all knowledge, all power. So Maya, Shakti, makes Ishvara all knowledge, all powerful, and of course he's omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. These are the three words we give for Ishvara. He's omnipresent because he is in and through everything. If, as we know, he is the material cause as well as the intelligent cause for this universe, where is he not, should be the question. Where is Ishvara not? He is in everything, every single atom, electron, particle, whatever we see, objectify, is actually Ishvara for us. So, this very beautiful understanding, Ishvara manifesting through the sattvika, pure sattva of creation, Brahman manifesting through the pure sattva of creation becomes Ishvara. So the same Brahman, he says, because that power, Maya, he adds here, that power, Maya, is Vashikritya Tam. Vashikritya Tam means it is under his sway. He is the magician wielding this power. It cannot hide the reality from him. He knows himself. He knows he's not covered by ignorance. Because we know that Maya, we'll see with the individual, Maya creates ignorance in the individual because it is impure sattva. It is rajas and tamas. In the next verse he will say that for Ishvara, because it is pure sattva, there is no ignorance. That's what makes him all knowledge. And because he is all knowledge, here is called Sarvagnya. Sarvagnya here, you see in the verse, means all knowledge Ishvara. All knowledge Ishvara can be understood also in two ways. There are two words in Sanskrit. Sarvagnya, all knowledge, because he lights up the whole universe through the upadhi of Maya, and he is Sarvavit. Sarvavit, Sarvavetritvam means knower of everything in detail. Why I'm saying this? Because a lot of people think if I understand or recognize I'm Ishvara, a jnani, for instance, a wise person recognizes Tattva-viveka, aham brahmasmi, I recognize I'm Ishvara. Then what happens? I know Japanese, Chinese, German, I know the knowledge of everything in this universe. A jnani will know everything simultaneously all at once. Now, is that ever possible? No. Because the very upadhi of the individual is limited. The mind of each individual is limited, including a wise person's mind. So knower of everything in detail can only be the one Ishvara. The conscious being on the macrocosmic level is the only one, because his upadhi it is all pervasive. Upadhi is the creation. For us, small jiva, the sukshma sharira only goes this much. I cannot know everything in detail. And another important point, Maya, some people translate, Maya is the universal mind. You have to understand what is meant by universal mind, if he's all knowledge. Universal mind means knowledge without thoughts. See, in the individual, how does knowledge take place? As we saw in previous class, the vritti, thought form, goes out through the apertures of the senses, whatever object of the senses it is contacting. Eyes can only have access to form and color. Ears only have access to sound. So the thought goes out. It encompasses the object and it brings the object into the mind, and knowledge takes place. Knowledge is registered. So knowledge for the individual is registered through thoughts. And these thoughts we saw are lit up by consciousness. The object is brought in, but what brings the object to light? What says object is? Chili is. Back to our chili. Chili is. What says that? Consciousness lighting up the thought, lights up the object in the mind, knowledge takes place. Now does Ishvara work like that? In the human being, we can only have knowledge one thought at a time gets lit up. If I'm looking at chili, I can't recognize anything else. Can I? If I'm looking at one object, I cannot recognize anything else. At least for that moment, even if it's momentary. Then another object comes in my mind. Then my thought goes to that object, I recognize that object. Another object comes in my mind, then thought focuses on that object. So all our minds work like this. One thought, object recognized. One thought, object recognized. Ishvara is all knowledge, which means what? It cannot be thought-based. He is all knowledge without thoughts. So when we say universal mind, we have to be very clear. He lights up every object simultaneously. That is how he becomes Sarvavit, knower of everything in detail. All knowledge Ishvara lights up every object simultaneously without thought. Individual requires thought. So I'll leave you to think about it. You can use your thoughts to think about that. So this is how he becomes Sarvavit, and he is the knower of everything in detail. And he is the one who governs the universal order. That universal order is called Rita or Dharma. Dharma is the universal order. For us, as I said, Ishvara is the very form of Dharma in this universe. Dharma and Karma are intrinsically linked together. Dharma, the order of Dharma, Karma, all of this. So Prakriti here now we see has now assumed with the Brahman manifesting through it the role, and this is also important to understand, the role of Ishvara. Brahman plays the role of Ishvara. This role thing is important to understand because individual role also is there. The Jiva, the individual, Atma, same consciousness on the level of individual called Atma plays the role of individual. So on the macrocosmic level, Brahman is playing the role of Ishvara. On the microcosmic level, Brahman is playing the role of Jiva. Now you can start to see where the equation starts making sense. So Prakriti he divides into two, Maya on the macrocosmic level, Avidya. When Sattva is there, predominantly Sattva, it is Maya. Again, I can't get rid of all the gunas, the Rajas and Tamasa will always be there. It is Trigunatmika, but as we talk about predominance. So Maya is Ishvara's Upadhi. And as I said, Maya is under the control of Ishvara. Ishvara, as all knowledge, has Maya under control. This Maya Shakti, we say, has two powers herself. This Maya Shakti has two powers. One is projection power. So whole universe is a projection power. You can see it's a projection on Brahman. That projective power is one of the powers of this Upadhi, this Maya Upadhi. And it has another power associated with it, which is Avarana Shakti. Avarana Shakti means the veiling power. So projection power is one power and veiling power. Now this veiling power for the magician, is it there? If the magician knows the magic, there is no veiling power affecting the magician. But if I'm on that side of the stage, watching the magic, what happens? The veiling power is very much with us. And that veiling power is called Avarana Shakti. So here, all knowledge, Ishvara, he is without the veiling power affecting him. He wields the power of veiling. So it's a veil, V-E-I-L. It is a covering. And it covers only one side. It doesn't cover the magician because the magician knows the magic. So that is why Ishvara is called Mayavi. The wielder of Maya is the magician who knows the magic of the universe. From our side, we are wowed by the magic, sometimes scared by the magic, sometimes fearful of the magic, sometimes joyous of the magic, but we are affected by the magic. That is the audience. We're in the audience here. And if suddenly the magician invites you back and says, "Come, I'll show you my trick," and you go onto the stage and he reveals the tricks to you, will you ever get affected again by the magic? No. You will not get affected at all. But you can enjoy other people getting affected. You can enjoy the whole show. Doesn't mean you have to leave the show. You can enjoy the whole show, be in the show. You can play the role very well. And you can also do hoo-ha with everybody else. But inside you know what? Magic cannot affect me because I know the tricks of the magician. That is called jnanam, self-knowledge. So Mayavi, avidya, is on the individual level. So Prakriti he divides, as I said, into two. Raja Pradhana Prakriti is avidya. Rajas, when it is predominant, is avidya. Sattva Pradhana Prakriti, when sattva is predominant, it is known as Maya. So now he talks about the jiva's birth. How is this jiva born? He says, avidya vashagastvanyah.
Avidya vashagastvanyah.
Twice.
Avidya vashagastvanyah.
Tatvai chitryat anekadha.
Tatvai chitryat anekadha.
Tatvai chitryat anekadha.
Tatvai chitryat anekadha.
Sakarana shariram syat.
Sakarana shariram syat.
Sakarana shariram syat. Prajnastatrabhimanavan.
Prajnastatrabhimanavan.
Prajnastatrabhimanavan. Together. Avidya vashagastvanyah. Tadvai chitryadhanekadha. Sakarana shariram syat.
Prajnastatrabhimanavan.
Okay. The other principle, he says, now, is the individual. So we have the samashti now explained very clearly by Vidyaranya. And now we have the individual, jiva. Individual is called jiva, who is under the sway avidya vashagaha. Avidya means ignorance. Avidya is created by the avarana shakti aspect of maya. So whereas vikshepa works in the external world, avarana is not there for Ishvara. On the individual level, because of the coloration of the manifestation of Brahman, because remember, the Brahman manifests through the individual mainly as rajas predominant. Mainly rajas predominant, so sattva, more rajas. More rajas is there than the other gunas. So rajas predominant. He says here, the other principle, namely the jiva, individual, is under the sway of ignorance. Brahman reflected in this avidya upadi. Avidya vashagaha. What is avidya upadi for the jiva? Maya is the upadi for Ishvara. Avidya is the name given for the limiting adjunct. Upadi is, the technical word in English is limiting adjunct. That which limits through lending its attributes. What is the limiting adjunct for the jiva? The body, mind, sense complex. So the avidya upadi is actually this dress we wear. Because we take it to be us. That is called ignorance. Taking this body, mind, sense complex to be I is called avidya. So he says, because of this identification with this body, mind, sense complex, jiva is subject to various gradations of ignorance. So ignorance, various gradations, because some will see that, some have more sattva, some have more rajas, some have more tamas. So various gradations, each one has different grades of, measure of gunas. He says that here, Tattva-viveka. Tattva-viveka means the three gunas get into all sorts of combinations with each other. So in fact, human being that we see are only walking, talking gunas. We are all walking, talking gunas on this level. Of course, on the intrinsic level, there is only one consciousness. But as body, mind, sense complex, everybody is fluctuating three gunas. So he says, because of these variations of the three gunas, anekadaha, the jivas anekada, the prakriti makes the jivas appear as varied, makes the jivas appear as many, giving the I thought to each jiva, which also feels I am only this much and I'm individual, separate from every other jiva, which is the biggest joke. In Vedānta, that separation is the biggest thing we have, the pain we have, actually pain. So he says, that ignorance, what is that ignorance? Now enters the Sharira Traya. So he brings in the birth of the Shariras. That ignorance is Karana Shariram Syat. It is the causal body. The causal body for the jiva, individual, brings the other bodies into existence, brings the subtle bodies, sukshma, and the stula bodies into existence. That he will continue to say in the next verse. But he says that, and in relation to that, the individual identified with this Karana Shariram, causal body, which is avidya, it is ignorant Shariram, then it's called Prajnaha Tatra Abhimanavan. Prajnaha Tatra Abhimanavan. The last line, Prajnyas Tatra Abhimanavan. That individual is given a name title, Prajnaha. Prajnaha is identification with the Karana Shariram, the causal body. So now let's see how we are born. We saw how Ishvara's role is born. How is the individual born? Through Rajaha. So Brahman, first we start. Consciousness, one truth is always there. And it manifests through Rajav Pradhana Prakriti. So the Rajas aspect of Prakriti, it manifests through, and it creates the Jivas, the individuality. Jivas need not be only human beings. There are all other creatures are also called Jivas. Anything with a Sukshma Shariram, subtle body, reflecting consciousness is called Jiva. So even the trees, the plants are a certain type of Jivas. The insects, the birds, they're also Jivas. So here specifically we're talking because human being, the Jiva, human being though, identified with the causal body, what happens? Identifies with avidya, identifies with ignorance, says, I am ignorant, I don't know. The individual with that ignorance, avidya vashagaha, main ignorance being what? Of course, we're ignorant of so many things in the world. Swamiji used to say, you find out, the more you know, the more you find out you don't know. So actually, the more you know of the world, you find out, I don't know. That's why ignorance is bliss. So what do I mean by that? Before you did not know, there was a subject called philately or something. I don't know what philatelist. I don't know why that's coming in my mind. But collection of stamps. You didn't know. People was collecting stamps, different types of stamps. Suddenly you find out and you have a desire to know more about it. And what happens? You have to discover a new subject you didn't even know about, and you discover your ignorance of that subject. So there are many new subjects we have no knowledge of. So many new things in this world to be discovered yet, discovered still. That's why, even in academia, is there one PhD on which another PhD cannot be written? No. You find you have written a PhD, it has a fantastic discovery in your field. Suddenly you find 1 year after somebody has taken your PhD, improved on it, written some other thing, some other research. So you can keep researching like this because the Jagat is all knowledge. There is no way we can know everything. Like I said, even for Vedas, there are so many branches of knowledge. It would take lifetimes to learn even one branch. There are so many texts on that. So you can imagine in every culture, every country, every language, how much knowledge there is in this world. Incredible. And if I'm living in a small place, I don't know much, I'm not exposed to much, that's why a simple life is happy. But when I get exposed to more things, the smallness is triggered more because I recognize what? Oh my God, I don't know anything. That I don't know anything is Karana Sharira. That causal body, which identified, Jiva feels that I don't know is identification with causal body. And this is one type of ignorance, but the main identification with avidya is this self-ignorance. Self-ignorance leads to all triggers of smallness with regard to other ignorances, right? Ignorance of other things. The avidya that is created in the individual, when the individual joins with the karana shariram, what happens? When Prakriti manifests through avidya, then it makes the individual do activity to fulfill himself. Because, remember, Brahman is manifesting to the Rajas aspect of Prakriti. Brahman doesn't get divided. Brahman is always full. Brahman is always complete. Brahman is always one. But that manifesting to the Rajas aspect of Prakriti makes the Jiva, the individual, appear as if it doesn't know anything. It forgets its fullness, the source. It forgets its completeness. It forgets its source and its nature. So the avidya upadhi makes the individual run after actions and objects and things to fulfill itself without recognizing. So this is how individual is born and how the life of samsara starts for the cycle of jiva. That's it. Beginning now, endless cycle of samsara starts. And there are countless jivas. Tat vaichitriyat. Vaichitriyat means variety, varied. Vaichitriya. Vaichitriya chitri kritam. There are so many, again, millions, billions of species, of plants, of even human beings. There are so many different types of bodies, right? So many different colors, so many different heights, so many different personalities. Amazing. The whole thing comes because of Brahman reflecting through Rajas. And he says, Tat Vaichitriyat, because in each individual, the three gunas get into infinite amount of combinations. So in the individuals, there are infinite amount of combinations of sattva, rajas and tamas. And these three gunas, Shastra talks about, there are four main categories that human beings are put in. So Krishna talks about it in the Bhagavad Gita. They are called the Varnas. You might have heard that word before. Varnas. Four classes of human beings. First is Brahmana. So people say, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, warriors, Vaishyas, the business people or the agriculturalists, Shudras, the ones who are blue-collar workers, all of this, without really understanding how this guna system works. It is not to categorize and put people higher than others. It is nothing like that. Originally, the Veda wanted to show there is certain differences in gunas between everyone in humanity. And this is a fact that we can see. Every society will have these four type of human beings. So what is Brahmana? What is a Brahmin? Brahmana is one with sattva guna predominant. So when sattva shines through the intellect, the ones who are more into knowledge pursuits, the ones who are advisors in the society, the ones who teach others, this is all Brahmana guna predominant. The ones who are administrators, they may not be the leaders, but they are the ones, they're like the, in India you have the IAS, you have the bureaucracy, right? You have the bureaucrats behind the ministers. So they're the brains of the nations. The brains of the nations, Brahmana. But it is not only the brains, intelligence, that is the profession they go into. There is a gentleness with this. When sattva guna comes into the picture, because we can have rajas also creating intelligence. We saw yesterday. It is not only pure knowledge, intelligence. There is also wisdom involved in sattva guna predominant. So they're able to guide others in various aspects of life. That's another type of Brahmana guna. Generally, we say the Brahmana guna people are not hugely wealthy because they're not interested in all gaining wealth. They're more the sattvic. They like to be, more with quiet. This type of peaceful people like that. So Brahmanas, sattva predominant, rajas next, tamas last. So this is the combination of gunas that create a Brahmana type personality. We can see for ourselves, this is interesting, not to go spotting, that's a Brahmana guna, that's sometimes people use all of these things to go and, spot others. It's very easy to see others, but this is mainly for ourselves. Because for moksha, for discovering moksha, we have to increase this Brahmana guna more. Sattva, rajas, tamas. And the next type of individual is Kshatriya. These individuals are generally Kshatriya means warriors. But they are the judiciary. They are the police force. They are the protectors of society. Every society will have such people. And they are rajas. Of course, you can guess, they are more rajas predominant. So they have more of this activity, and they are the leaders in society. They are the kings, they are the rulers, and they have more of this rajas. But the rajas is qualified next by sattva. So their combination of kshatriyas is rajas, sattva, tamas. Sattva is there very close to rajas. So that means that the people who are these leaders, these type of leaders, the kshatriyas in this case, not all leaders are like this. That's the problem. Some leaders are different, but they really genuinely want the benefit of society. So they're in their roles, playing the roles of leadership, administration. All the administrators are in this as well. They're leading society because they want to improve society, because the sattva aspect is with the rajas. So the activity is there, but the sattva makes them want to do something for benefit of society. So this is what rajas, sattva, tamas, the kshatriyas. Then there's a third category of human beings, vaishyas. Vaishyas combination is what? So, we have 3 gunas but 4 categories. How does it work? It's 3 gunas, 4 categories, because rajas here is predominant still for vaishyas. These are the business people of society. They are the backbone, financial backbone of society. The industrialists, the agriculturists, the people who, keep the economy of the nations going. These are the vaishyas. And they have rajas predominant because you have to be active when you're in this field. Rajas predominant, but the next guna is tamas. So you can never have a guna combination like rajas, sattva, tamas, because it has to, you can't have the last one, sattva, rajas, tamas is like that. You can have tamas, sattva, rajas, but you can't skip gunas. You can't have sattva, tamas. You can't have tamas, sattva. You have to go via rajas. That's why rajas in the middle can go either way. So rajas, tamas, sattva is the business. Are the business people, the backbone, the economic backbone of every nation, the people involved in this type of activity. So we find as well, in every nation you can see this type of personalities that come into the picture. And the final one, combination of gunas, is the tamas predominant. Now you can guess if tamas is predominant, as I said, you can't have sattva next. So tamas predominant will have rajas next, then sattva. So tamas predominant are, the blue collar workers or people doing the laborer types of work. That's the type of job that is associated with tamas predominant. Again, there's no lower or higher here. It is purely just to see the balance of gunas, to see the combination of gunas. In fact, during COVID, it was the Shudras, the Shudra aspect, they were the ones keeping societies going. The shelf stackers and the garbage, clearers, all of this. So every society needs all 4 types of personalities, 4 types of people to keep it going. So this is the jiva identified with karana shariram becomes these 4 types of personalities, and within those 4 you have different combinations, different balances. So all of this was given to people. These models were given for one to see what is my strength, what is my guna, where do I have to improve, do I want to become more sattvic, especially for spiritual growth. Sattva guna predominance is prescribed, but if you want to go into business, check. If you're very tamasic, or you feel, I don't have enough rajas, you need a lot of rajas to go into business because you need to work. If you're somebody who puts in some effort and then, afterwards you have to rest. Some people are like that. Again, no judgment. It is no wrong or right here. That is how we saw in the morning meditation. This is how I am. This is how the body is. This is how the mind is. We are only a play of gunas. Some people put a spurt of effort, in in Sanskrit is called Arambasuraha. Arambasuraha means they, in the beginning, very enthusiastic. Majority of people are like that. Enthusiastic about everything, put a lot of effort. Suddenly after a while, goes. Then that thing is forgotten. Then next thing, put in a lot of effort, then goes. Next thing. So it is not easy to keep efforts sustained. You have to see, does my profession need sustained effort, or does my interest require sustained effort? If I'm not that type, I have to see. Then maybe I can change my gunas without judgment. I can transform myself, because one rule is Prakriti is malleable. Remember, if everything here is Prakriti, material cause, like clay, is malleable. Clay, mind, body, senses is also like clay. I do have a free will where I can mold the clay to my liking. I can put efforts and I can transform myself through my own efforts. That's the beauty of this. I'm not stuck. If I feel stuck with what I have, first I have to accept this is what I'm given. With what is given, if I want to make a change, I have the power to do that. Mind is also Prakriti. Mind, although it is a bundle of thoughts, mind can also be transformed. Bodies, we know, through diet, exercise can be transformed. I can play with the gift of Prakriti. What I have been given by Ishvara, I can definitely transform. If I need to transform, I can do it. So now, Jiva, it's called Jiva Yatra. The pilgrimage of the individual begins. It's identified with the Karna Shariram, causal body, and now the Jiva's Yatra begins. And where does the Jiva have to go? Pilgrimage means it has a place to find, to discover. Where is that? It is not to go into another body. That is not the end and the lot of the Jiva. It is to discover it is free of the body. That is the Yatra, the culmination of the Jiva Yatra. There's a text called Jiva Yatra, the pilgrimage of the individual. The pilgrimage of the individual is not to bring you back into body after body, into Karna Shariram. It is to show you are free from the causal body. That is the cause for the other bodies. So we will see this more. And what now the Karana Shariram, he goes on to say what the Karana Shariram gives rise to, and the main issue of samsara. Karana Shariram is only the cause, it is the seed, but what creates our samsara, our experiences here. He will talk more in the next verse. We'll see in the afternoon. Right? Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om